I remember when I was a kid, I asked my dad one time, I'm like, yo, man, why you always say hi to everybody? Like he's a dude that'll walk down the street and speak to everybody. Yo, hey, what's up? All right, how you doing?
My dad does that too.
And I was like, yo, why do you do that? Like, why do you say hi to everybody? He said, cause if you're nice to everybody, if ever you got to do something, everybody you're nice to will vouch for you and say, nah, he couldn't have done that. And I said, wow, I didn't understand that shit until I got older. And I was like, you have to be a real psycho to play chess kind of with your psycho actions.
No, that's so funny you're saying that, because I'm right now reading a book. It's called 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And that's exactly what the book is about. I'm just starting the book, but the first rule of the book. So the whole premise of the book, it sounds psychotic.
It sounds sinister.
But I've watched YouTube videos of this guy, and he's one of the sweetest. He's such a sweetheart. So it's like it's just so ironic to see like this really sweethearted person writing this. But in the introduction of the book, he talks about how these laws of power, if you don't play them, you're just not going to be successful. Like you're going to screw up your life. Like you're just going to get trampled on. They're in a perfect world, we would all be kind. And he also explains that it's not always about having power over people in a malicious way. Right. Sometimes it's just about protecting yourself. And the first rule of the book is never, let me open it up. Never outshine your master.
Right.
And then he gives these stories about how like, there was this one, I can't remember the names of the dudes. I have a bad memory, but he talks about this one. He was working for a king and he wanted like a promotion. Mm-hmm. So his idea was, let me throw a lavish party. If I throw this big party, the king is going to be impressed and I'm going to get the promotion. Yeah. The king ended up putting him in jail because he got jealous. So and it's like, so you start thinking about it and you're like, oh damn, that's right. And it got me thinking back to situations in my life. I'm like, oh my God. So that one time that I was trying to impress my boss and he ignored me, it's because I was threatening to him. Yeah. So it's like, this shit is real. Like it's like, and it's,
I think you kind of have to know when to pull that move.
Yeah.
And when to not.
Yeah.
And it is a thing of like, even with my dad saying that, I understand that has two sides of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It could be on the malicious side where it's like, hey, yeah, I'm a motherfucking psycho. So, in case I got to break a motherfucker's neck, everybody in the neighborhood can vouch for the fact that I'm not like that. You know what I'm saying? But then it also could be, like you said, protecting yourself in the matter of, you never really show your hand until you really kind of have to. There's another book called like The Spook That Sat by the Door.
Yeah.
And that's a book about like slavery. It's set in like slavery time, right? Where there was this house slave who was really close with like, the slave owners and shit like that. And all the slaves that were treated like shit by the slave owners hated him out of envy and shit like that, because it's like, yo, this motherfucker's treated the best.
Yeah.
And all that shit there. But what happens is, right, the slave owners loved him so much that they started to think little of him. Yeah. Right? To where it's like, they would have meetings and shit and they would talk about shit in the meetings. They would talk about shit that they wouldn't usually talk about with like the slaves around.
Yeah.
And then if somebody seen him there, they'd be like, yo, what's up with dude? They'd be like, nah, he's okay. He's all right. And then what happened was, at some point, the slaves who were treated like shit decided to revolt.
Yeah. And
that slave that they hated for being treated so nice, he was the one that knew where all the guns were. He was the one that knew, where, what the plan was if something like this were to happen. They gonna do this and da-da-da-da. Yeah. So it's like, that's even, it's one of those things where it's like, you kind of got to sacrifice your own dignity for a certain amount of time to be able to pull something like that off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even with comedy, you know, I do these shows and I get these comedy people who come up to me and they've been doing it for 12, 15 years, but they're
not progressing.
They really just doing the same circuit, doing the same shit. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I'm under the tutelage of some underground kings, and I hold that with pride because I see what they're like. I see that they're, you know, it's motherfuckers who could have made it, but maybe they're just not down with doing the Hollywood shuffle. Yeah. So it's like, bro, I'll just tour these streets until I die. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. But then there's some motherfuckers who just hang on to the fact that I done did comedy for 12 years. You know what I'm saying? But you only got to give them $150 to book them. Yeah. And, you know, not to say money runs shit, but it's like, I see them perform, some of them, and it's like, all right, I see why you stagnant. But those will be the motherfuckers who try to give advice. Right. And even though everything inside me is like, man, shut the fuck up. It's not I can't do that because of even the small connections they have. Later on in life, or not even later on in life, they could, you know, introduce me to somebody who could potentially change everything that's going on because they've been doing it for so long. Maybe it didn't work out for them, you know what I'm saying? But it could happen like that. And you know what I'm saying? Like that's where I say you kind of got to sacrifice your, maybe not dignity, but maybe you just got to know when to have a filter.
If you know what the purpose is behind it, you're not really sacrificing your dignity. Like, for example, okay, here's like a whole nother.
I don't think that's true because if a bitch fuck her way to the top, I think she is sacrificing.
Right. But that's different. But
or if a guy fuck his way to the top,
that's
like
different.
That.
That's different. You're not fucking anybody. You're just being nice. That's like two very different things.
I would though. I would for all you older. All right. Here's an example. Women, I would fuck my way to the top.
Here's an example, totally unrelated to this, but like a parallel of a different situation. Here's a situation where manipulation works. Have you ever been in an argument with somebody where you realize the closest thing to peace is just making them think they're right? You're like, I'm not going to win this argument. Let me just pretend they're right and pretend they won this argument just so I can have peace. Like that would be a way where it's like, yeah, you're giving your dignity, but really your dignity is your peace. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. And I've been in those situations, but I will not do that. Because